Hello and welcome to Faith Works Live. We truly believe that faith works as long as you have faith in the right things. And that is going to be part of our discussion moving forward today. If you have, you've just tuned in and you're like, what is this crazy person talking about? Hello, you're welcome. My name is Rebekah Haynie, and we talk about really all kinds of things, but basically how to live faithful lives in this crazy, chaotic, and more and more hostile world. Hostile to things that were normally deemed reality, like 50 years ago, 10 years ago. Man, this is that truth and reality stuff. That was real nice. I remember that back in my day. But now things are just a lot more subjective. I guess we've progressed a lot more beyond that. So I believe that the truth matters, that the truth is the truth, no matter who says it, and that we should be willing to align ourselves in relationship to that truth. And it doesn't change based on your feelings. I think I've heard facts don't care about your feelings from somewhere. Copyright, not mine. But it is a joy to be with you as we spend this tiny little slice of eternity trying to figure out how to live reasonable, faithful, and bold lives in a world that really, really needs to hear some truth, even if that's uncomfortable. And one of those truths that has been increasingly uncomfortable and apparently difficult for a lot of people to say is that there are differences between men and women. Shocker. I hold controversial opinions like that. I do believe that God made men and women in his image to reflect the Imago Dei in their unique ways. And that we do that job wonderfully, but uniquely and differently. This, however, makes me a pariah in like 90% of esteemed social circles today. That's just reality. Can't do nothing about it. Them's the facts. And even being willing to say something as simple as that statement creates a lot of controversy. And I'm not sure why, but I'm no stranger to that. So why not wade into it? Why not wade into that fully today? Embrace that with me, if you will. Come with me and you will see this world of pure, imagination. But the boldness that it takes to say things like that, to say this, believing a lie has consequences. And it's hurting people. A lot of times we're presented with alternative ideas about gender, alternative ideas about how we should structure our society around people's feelings about gender, and folks will say, who does this hurt? Why not go along with other people's perceptions and with these changes? Because we don't want to hurt anybody. But the truth is, when we abandon actual reality, we all get hurt. There are consequences for that as well. When we start looking into the world of pretend as though that's going to give us some fulfillment. And some of the people that I have seen hurt the most in these last few years have been young women, specifically. And as a woman, I get pretty protective about that. I'm like, this is not good. Unintended consequences. And that's why I think you see some fairly strange bedfellows or strange comrades when you have some staunch militant feminists that are on the opposite side of the woke mob because they're willing to say things like men and women are different. And we should not be telling women that that there's nothing more to femininity than just what somebody's feeling that day or some medication that they can take or the way that they're dressed on the outside. That there's something actually special and worthy of protecting and honoring about what it means to be a woman. If you've been paying attention to the realm of athletics, specifically high school and college women's sports, this area has taken center stage on this debate. And what I've seen is that there are an awful lot of female athletes who are caught up in the center of this when you see people that decide, I want to play for the female team, for the women's team, suddenly, because that's how I identify now. It completely changes the entire dynamic of really the whole contest. And it highlights, I think, that we, number one, can't get away from objective reality, but also that women deserve to have their space in sports. and that men and women both deserve to compete in a fair playing field. And what we're seeing now is that politics is obstructing that and overtaking that and destroying some of the dreams of these very, very talented and skilled and dedicated and hardworking young people in the name of a political agenda. Well, it takes a lot of bravery to be able to speak out about that. And I have a very brave young woman in the studio today. And I'm very excited to get a chance to hear more about her and her story. Her name is Ainsley Erzen, and she joins us now. Ainsley, thanks for coming in.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, you're a pretty awesome young lady. So people who are aware of the track and field area in our community here in Iowa, central Iowa, and really all across the state, and probably even farther out than that, may have heard your name before, because you're pretty good at running, right?
Yeah.
So you've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, since 7th grade.
All right. And so what is something that which are your events? Which are your sports?
My main event is the 800, and then I also do a lot of 400s and the mile.
Okay. And so you've got to be really fast.
Yeah.
So this is something that you've been dedicated to. What's a typical day like for you? You know, you said you've been doing this since 7th grade, so this is a big part of your life. What does that look like for you? What are some of the ways that you've dedicated yourself to the sport?
Yeah, well, just an average day, I usually run 7 miles a day. So there's definitely that. And then I do soccer also. So usually in the spring, I go run 7 miles right after school and then change real fast and then go to soccer practice. So it's definitely something that I've devoted a lot of time to.
Well, and you're very good at it as well. So your skill has shown through. What are some of the competitions just recently that where you've had that ability to say, hey, this is what I do, this is who I am, this is what I love, and what were some of the results of those?
Yeah, well, the biggest one, I guess, recently was over the summer. I went to nationals in Oregon, and I set the Iowa girls state record there in the 800 and won the national championship. So that was definitely my biggest accomplishment so far, which was really amazing. And then I've also had state titles in the 800, Drake titles in the 400, and then state titles in the mile. So all around, it's been a really busy, successful year.
Yeah, you're being humble about it. It's a pretty big deal. Is basically what all of that amounts to. You're very, very good at this. But which makes your perspective very valuable, and your voice comes with an awful lot of credibility. Like you are, if you'll forgive the phrase, kind of like that poster child for girls athletics. And what you have to say matters about this because it affects you directly. Mm-hmm. So when you see changes in sports, you're speaking out about some of this. And the title that they put on your op-ed at the Des Moines Register, which we'll link below here in the show notes too. But if you go to the Des Moines Register page, Ainsley's article is called "Iowa Girls Are Relying on Athletic Union to Preserve Girls' Sports." And so this is something that I've been kind of leading up to in general, but specifically in the realm of athletics, this is something that matters a great deal to you as our high school girls athletic association is looking at, how to deal with, or perhaps, ways that they're not dealing with these new challenges when it comes to accepting biological male athletes in girls' sports. So why did you write this?
Well, first of all, we're one of the only states that has a girls' athletic union, so the fact that we have one and they are reaching out to us for advice is very disappointing considering that's the sole reason we have them. But they put out a statement in an article saying that they needed advice on how to handle this issue. And although I've never competed against a transgender athlete, it's something that I've been seeing all across the nation for years now. And it definitely has affected so many girls, and it really is just heartbreaking to see all the hard work they've put into it, only to have someone with a clear biological difference come and kind of take their opportunities from them. And it is a lot. It does affect me a lot, but it also is so much bigger than me. I mean, I have 3 little sisters. I'm the oldest of 4, so I've gotten the chance to do so many things. I mean, chase state records, state titles, and those are things that I truly would not have accomplished if I hadn't had women before me do those things that I could look up to. And I want my sisters to have the opportunity to do that in the future. I want all other girls to have the opportunity to do that in the future. So It's definitely really impacted me.
Well, and those are things that I think run afoul of another narrative that says, well, we have to open this opportunity to athletes that are just built differently, right? And I think there are a lot of folks that say, well, we have to give an opportunity over here, but they might not be recognizing that they're actively it's a competition, right? So there's one first place, there's only so many spots on the platform, on the podium, only so many scholarships. And I think it's a little strange that the grown adults in the room, right, can't understand that they're actually putting women, young women, at a disadvantage in their own sports because they're turning it into a competition between really more like ideology, and all of those political stuff is getting in the way. And I know that you've had the benefit of that reward of all your hard work because you had lots of scholarship offers and things like that. That's a huge and way to go. Like, this is a bright future for you. But as you said, what if other girls don't have that opportunity?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I just committed to Arkansas on a scholarship there. So that's another really great thing that I'm blessed to have happen to me. And just so many things like that. Like you said, scholarship offers, state titles. I just took the state record in the 800 because I had women like Shelby Houlihan, Joy Ripslinger that set a time that was amazing. Obviously, it's very fast, but it was attainable, and it was something that I could look at and say, okay, I could be them one day. And if we have these males coming into our competition and running these, 155, 800s easily, because we have handfuls of guys that can do that. 85 guys just at this year's state meet beat my state record-setting time. And there are just numbers like that you can't ignore no matter how hard you try. So I want girls in the future to be able to see my time that I set and say, okay, I can go for that. And obviously I want to have my name up there and keep my record, but if another girl comes along and works her butt off and earns that, I am going to be so happy because I'm going to know I played a role in pushing her to attain that. And I guess if somebody's going to take that record, they better earn it. And if a guy comes in and takes it, that's just not happening.
Well, and you mentioned that's why people should definitely read your article over at the Des Moines Register, because you give some very solid fact-based examples of just, again, those differences, why we have such different things as men's sports, women's sports. There are differences. There are differences. And that shows up in competition in a big way, as you just mentioned. And that's something that in the past has seemed quite obvious. And now, like you're saying, there's such a distinct advantage. I mean, what would that be like to compete against somebody that is just built so differently than you are? I think one of the examples that stood out for me in your piece was in the realm of soccer when you were talking about, could you relay some of that story?
Yeah, so in preparation for a game against Russia, the U.S. women's national team, who is by far the most decorated women's soccer team in the world, scrimmaged a U15 boys soccer team, and they got beat significantly. I mean, it really wasn't a close game. Correct. 14 and 15-year-old boys beating the best group of women that has ever stepped on the field to play soccer. So that's just another example. Even just outside of running, some people may say soccer is less controversial in this area, but it's really not. Any area where we put men against women, even little boys, like they're gonna beat women just because there are so many biological differences.
Well, and again, you wouldn't think that type of thing would be controversial. However, as evidenced by the fact we just all gone nuts is the truth about this. But I'm really pleased with your courage at speaking out, Ainsley. I don't know that this should be something that falls on your shoulders, but you're able to speak with authority on this. And thank you for having the courage to speak out. Excellent piece over at the Des Moines Register by Ainsley Erzen, who is our special guest. And also in studio is none other than Ainsley's proud papa, Todd Erzen, who is no stranger to this show. It's good to have you back, Todd.
Good to be back. You said you're a pariah before. Well, what do you do when you're feeling like a pariah? You invite another pariah.
I find another one.
Yes.
Welcome to the club. We have snacks. Todd, as you're watching some of this play out and knowing that even just as a parent, because I don't know that I've talked with you about this issue in this way before, But I know that you're willing to speak out and tell the truth, even when that's inconvenient and politically incorrect. That's basically what you do. But you're also a parent of phenomenal athletes, and way to go, by the way. Congratulations on your part in that. You've done a lot right.
Whatever that was,
As
I'm
a
still
dad,
not sure.
You and your fine wife have done a lot of awesome things as mom and dad. So just props
Thank
for
you.
that. But when you see stories like, I think the biggest one is probably Leah Thomas that people have seen in the realm of swimming. So transgender swimmer, formerly on the men's team, and then joins the women's team, and then just completely, if you'll pardon the pun, blows every female athlete out of the water. And everybody knows it. And it's big kind of unspoken gap. I think it was more than 30 seconds or something between that athlete's finish and the women that were competing. So you look at that as a parent of, outstanding athletes, female athletes, and what's going through your head?
Well, it's funny you say everybody knows it. Well, everybody knows something, but the people that are perpetrating this on at least half of the swimmers at the University of Pennsylvania have over time started to come out and find their courage, but they're terrified of what the mob is going to do with them. And what everybody really knows on the side that is encouraging Leah and Leah himself is that reality itself, you used that term earlier, it is the thing that ultimately they're going after. They're trying to redefine the universe. This is him jumping in the pool and saying he's a girl is no different than somebody who's second place and finishes a couple seconds behind first place, simply deciding, say, you know what? I identify as the winner here. It's not any crazier than that. And that's where we are at this thing. We're all looking around knowing that something's wrong, but the people who are most certain about deciding to constantly break all the eggs are intimidating everybody into silence. This is a battle for reality itself. And the sad part about it, like you said, is people like my daughter have to do a part that they should never, ever have to do. And that's what both her and her younger sisters keep looking at me and my wife are like, that's what they're most curious about. Like, Dad, how? They've gone to school board meetings and they know that the arguments are terrible, yet they keep winning. That's disturbing. And either we put the brakes on that or we're in big trouble. These last 2 years of COVID, before that, on our show, the show that you and I used to be a part of together, I said transgenderism was the gateway to something that I couldn't quite figure out what it was going to be yet. But it was a great unraveling, because once we believe that, we'll believe in anything. And sure enough, look at the last 2 years. We have literally believed in just about anything. That's why everybody who has a chance to do something, and she's been given a platform and she knows it, and lest anybody think Dad made her do this, this is her life. She's been raised in my home, but she made this call on her own. She said, I've been blessed, but I hear God asking me to go to Nineveh, and that's what needs to be done.
Yeah. Well, and we need more courage in those, I would say, in average everyday people, but in particular, people who are recognizing that God's put me here for a reason. And, we can't neglect this moment just because it's difficult. And you do get pushback and blowback, and I know that you guys know that. In fact, we're going to take a little break here, but we'll go on the other side. I'd like to know what the reception has been like to you publicly, basically kind of planting a flag a little bit, but being willing to speak those things that are true and yet still difficult to say in this day and age. It does take courage. And I know that, it's probably not always pleasant. You're not getting sunshine and roses back all the time. But that's why we appreciate your boldness. Thanks, Ainsley. Ainsley Erzen and Todd Erzen are special guests in studio. We're talking about basically like men and women, and the fact that there are two genders, that God created us in a good way, that we should not be afraid of that reality. And what do we do when reality is being unraveled around us, specifically in the area of women's sports? And how can we protect young women and make sure that they have the opportunities that their God-given skill and dedication would deserve, even in this crazy world? Is there a way forward? We will discuss when we return here on Faith Works Live.
Now is the time to stand for life. For 50 years, Iowans for Life has been the longest standing nonprofit pro-life organization in Iowa, and they stand strong today as Pulse Life advocates. They believe in defending the defenseless, and that's what we need now, a new generation to value the sanctity of all human life from fertilization till natural death. They advocate at the Capitol, in classrooms, at events across the state of Iowa on abortion, on family planning, on physician-assisted suicide, euthanasia, basically every issue where the culture is so contrary to what God calls us to. They're standing in the gap as defenders of the defenseless, and they're a voice for the voiceless because they believe in the value of life. And if you do too, sign up for their newsletter and get involved today at pulseforlife.org. That's pulseforlife.org. What does love look like? Love means serving those who are truly in need, and that is what they do at Agape Pregnancy Resource Center. That's really what they're all about, helping, loving, serving women in crisis pregnancy situations with free pregnancy testing, STD testing, ultrasounds, and so much more. For practical needs, they have turned whole lives and whole family trees. It's amazing to see what they're doing right here in our very own community for women in need. They provide free services because they believe that women deserve the truth about their bodies and about their babies. And when women know they're not alone, they can fix the crisis and carry them through the pregnancy. They empower women to choose life. And like I said, whole families are here because of the work that they do at Agape. There are many ways to get involved, practical ways for you to live out your pro-life through Agape. Get involved with their important ministry at agapedsm.com. Click the tab that says Get Involved and find out their current needs and ways that you can help meet those needs and care for women in crisis and save babies at the same time. It's agapedsm.com.
You're listening to Faith Works Live. I'm so glad that you are. As voices crying in the wilderness, we all need to stick together because that's what we need at this point, is just to amplify that sound a little bit, just a little bit, up over the hills, Babylon. Rebekah Haynie is my name. And if you are just tuning in, well, you'll just have to go back and hit the podcast, because we've been introduced to an awesome young lady. Ainsley Erzen is her name. She and her dad, Todd Erzen, also a pretty cool guy on his own right, here in studio. And we're talking about the courage that it takes to speak the truth. Even something as simple as, hey, women's sports should be for women. And be about women. That type of truth can be difficult to say. It does take courage when the world has gone crazy nuts all around us. But Ainsley is an 18-year-old star high school athlete who has, nothing but a bright future ahead of you. Received scholarships, excited to go to Arkansas coming up in the fall, and has just smashed records everywhere. So we got a quick rundown of that in a track and field specifically. But this is an arena that has become a battlefront for the culture war, and it has nothing to do with the athletes who have put their time and dedication and hard work and have sweat and breathed all of their sport for their entire life to do their best with their God-given potential. Now some of those opportunities are being taken away for nothing more than political reasons, than this idea of deconstructing gender in general. All of that has come into smashing conflict on the realm of competition between high school girls. And the women are the ones who are suffering. The female athletes are the ones who are suffering as a result of this redefinition of gender and removing the lines that, had good reason to be there in the first place. It's really taking away opportunity from young women. Ainsley has the courage to speak out. She has a phenomenal op-ed in the Des Moines Register. And again, it'll be in the show notes for today, but you can look it up, Ainsley Erzen. Very well written piece, Ainsley. But I was wondering, because, not everybody has good taste. And I figured there's probably been some pushback or some response. And I'd just like to know, in radio-friendly terms, what kind of things are you hearing in response to this? Because you did take a public and a courageous stand. Not everyone is willing to say these things out loud, and you are. So to me, that makes you a rock star. But what kind of response are you getting from other people who've read this?
Yeah, I think at the beginning, I did get hundreds of messages reaching out and just telling me like how grateful they were that I was willing to speak out, how brave they thought it was. But the truth is, like, most people aren't willing to do that. And I think even the girls that do want to, culture has just told us that being kind is to just sit back and be quiet and let everyone just live their lives however they want to live them, no matter how that impacts us. And as sad as that is, that's just the way things are. So as many people there are that support me, not many of them are willing to do so publicly. But the people who hate me for it are definitely willing to be loud about it.
Isn't it funny how that works?
Right. So ever since it was published, I have gotten a lot of like DMs, public posts. A lot of them are either saying, I'm homophobic, transphobic, somehow like racist, and things got thrown in there too.
That's weird.
Yeah, just for the heck of it. But I think other than that, I've been told, I'm just like afraid to lose. Things like that. And as hard as it is to get, like, it's not fun to go on your phone and see all of these public things being said about you, but I think I know myself, and I know the people that care about me know my heart. God knows my heart, which is the most important. So I think even though it's not fun, I think the thing that's been hardest is just trying to trust myself. I think the devil definitely tries to condemn us in the ways that God is like trying to use us the most. So for me, it's hard just to tell myself like I am brave enough to do this. I am strong enough. I'm smart enough. Because I don't feel like I am capable of doing this, to be honest. Like I think there are other people that are better for it. I mean, I know there are. But the reality is no one else was willing to do it. I was. So I guess I'm just trying to trust and pray that since I was willing to do it, God will kind of equip me with the things that I need to do the message justice, because it is important and it is something that impacts a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me just in that moment, for whatever reason, I thought of Queen Esther, and she's like, this is not the job I signed up for. But it was for that moment that God put her in that place. So no pressure, just for whatever reason that popped into my head, because you are doing exactly that. You're able to stand up and speak the truth. And I don't think this should be as hard as it is, especially for the women who are being impacted again by this, because a lot of us know. A lot of us know that something isn't right here. And especially if we're talking about taking opportunity away from girls, from young women, in just to score some political points for the here and now. I mean, none of this really makes sense. And Todd, you like to catalog, the ridiculous things that exist in our culture that go under the realm of reality.
I could use a break, but I don't see that coming anytime soon.
There's a whole backlog that we've got to get you to, so you're going to work overtime on this one. What have you seen in terms of response to just even whether or not it's this article, but just in general, being willing to stand up and speak the truth that men and women are different? That's a good thing. That's how God made us. And there is such dignity in that. And there's something we should honor about that, that gives, both men and women working together is how God designed us to be, not denigrating the other, not like abolishing this entire idea of gender. If we can't understand those basic things that have held true over the entire history of humanity, then, I really don't know where that leaves us other than lost and confused about such basic elements that we don't even know who we are in the morning.
The dignity is the crucial word there. I saw a beautiful scene at last year's state meet, and it involved my daughter, but at the time she's a junior, and a couple seniors down on that track meet before, I believe it was the 1500, got together. They're all competing against each other, and everybody but one is going to lose that race. But beforehand, the senior just said, hey, we're going to form a prayer circle. Anybody who wants in it? And there's a beautiful picture. And I think just about everybody every single girl got in. I have no idea what all of their belief system is, but that's what this sport does. It brings in each other's pain and suffering. Ring a bell,
Literally, yeah.
Christians? That's where there is opportunity for growth, for the phoenix rising out of the ashes, for life to come off of that cross. Running does a remarkable job off of that. And listen, even though people lose all the time in this sport, there's the dignity you see in the hugs that they give each other, the common sense of purpose. And what by just throwing there's no greater lie you can throw in the middle of that arena than, hey, this dude is a girl, thinks he's a girl and going to run against you. It's just chaos. Dignity is impossible in the face of that. And that's why we must fight. And again, I can't stress enough, before the break, I knew this is where we were heading even before COVID. You cannot think you need to die on this hill as a culture and think you have a culture worth dying for. It's something that is, quite frankly, we need to recover our American Revolution. The ideals that we all fought for are basically up for grabs now. And so again, we have these Minutemen, these citizen soldiers, like my daughter, like the ones who are starting to find their voice at the University of Pennsylvania, who are just going Rosa Parks, and they're saying, no, enough.
Well, I've wondered about that, honestly. I've wondered what would happen, and I've not been in that position, so maybe this is a ridiculous assertion, but what would happen if at the meet, on the fields, on the courts, on, at the pool, whatever that might be, all of the female athletes, the young women who deserve to be there, just said, I'm not competing today.
So that needs to happen.
Just said, I'm not going to do this. This is farcical. Or, whatever the high schoolers who are cooler than me would say. But, this is silly. And I'm not going to pretend that this is okay. I understand not being the only one that, no one wants to be the only one to speak out and then get the hate. But what if we just said, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to pretend like this is okay or this is normal. And we're not going to go through with this. I mean, wouldn't that make some kind of a difference? Wouldn't that cause athletic associations and high schools and colleges to stand up and take note? Or, am I just Pollyanna over here?
Oh, it would certainly create a conversation that very few want to have right now. And it may come down to the girls doing that. And I'll let Ainsley speak to that because she's been around those initial conversations about the what if, simply because you need to prepare yourself for that moment so it doesn't run you over. But before it comes to them, how about the dads? Like, where are the dads of the girls at the University of Pennsylvania? And I have no pretensions, and I know you don't either. I don't think it is like a mini extension of Hillsdale College over there or anything like that, okay? I'm quite certain there's a pretty leftist framework going over there and one that has a little room for God. But Title IX, feminism, women's power, call it what you want. Where is it to say, this is ours, get out of here? Where is the resentment of saying, wait a second, I take a man, give him mental illness, and then chemically castrate him, and voila, that's a woman. Why does that not make them absolutely nuts? Why aren't those fighting words?
As a woman, that's offensive. That's what that's what I have to say. Is I've always said that it takes more to be a woman than boobs in a ball gown, and that's kind of what we've reduced things to. Or I suppose it is possible that we could start having like short answer quizzes on the entry forms for all of this, where you actually have to answer the question, "What is a woman?" in order to compete in women's sports. Just another random idea to throw out into the suggestion box.
Well, isn't that one of the great? I mean, that is the question, and really the only question, if you want to have this with anybody. The guys who so badly say that they are women, then what is that? And you saw that with Matt Walsh recently, and now he's been, the fact that happened at all has been scrubbed from YouTube because you're not allowed to have that conversation. What is the thing that you are telling me is your essence? You should be able to have an answer to that, but you don't. That's a problem.
If we can't define what that is, and what you mentioned, Todd, is is critical, that this has been a long-standing push. This is not something that just bloomed overnight in somebody's subconscious somewhere. This has been a long-standing push to remove any semblance of God-given reality, and then it untethers us to the point where we need to have something else that we can listen to, something else that can drive us, something that makes us feel good. We're searching for the happy feelings, and believing a lie is never going to heal your soul. It's never going to fulfill you to that point where you can say, yes, this is what I can live for, and this is my purpose, because that's what we're looking for. We're lost and we're looking for purpose. We're looking for love. We're looking for acceptance, all of those things, but we won't find it in a lie. And it is not kind or compassionate to lie to people or to allow the world to lie to them. We have to speak up, and that's why I'm using words like truth and reality. It matters so much. That is the most loving thing that you can do. Love cannot exist in a lie. Love cannot exist without the truth, because God is both. And as the origin of both, it just like that. These are two things that will not work together. It's very, very important that we're able to love people in both grace and truth. That is a very hard call these days. And Ainsley, I know that from the perspective of, a phenomenal female athlete, like I said, maybe those are simple suggestions, and it should not have to come from you. It shouldn't have to come from, 14, 15, 16-year-olds. But if and when it does, do you believe that there will be other young girls that will be able to speak up and to speak to this, to speak up for themselves, if nothing else? Do you think that spirit exists?
Yeah, for sure. I think that at a certain point, everyone is just going to get fed up. I mean, this is ridiculous, and everyone knows it. And like I said, there have been so many people that have come out and supported me, but they just don't know how to take that first step and help. And I think if they're given that opportunity, they definitely will. I think it is hard to come out and do something like that, but I think when you're willing to just throw yourself into the fire, I think when you take that first step, like every next step is easier and easier. And I love so much that you talk about truth, because a lot of the comments I've been getting is Jesus tells us to love. Jesus tells you to love your neighbor. God would be so disappointed in you. And like you said, I mean, if God is love and God is truth, one cannot exist without the other. And so I thought that was a really, really good way of putting it.
Well, it's not original to me.
Right.
So I can't take credit for that. But yes, that's the way that I've come to see it, because it isn't easy to speak directly to someone and say, I know that this is what you want, but this isn't real. And the God who loves you more than anything is telling you this is really, really bad for you. And I've had those conversations with, on other subjects, and so I know what it's like to say, but Lord, I really want this one thing. I really, really think that this would be good for me. And he says, no, this is not good for you. And you got to trust me on this one. And if someone doesn't have that relationship with God either, I mean, it's like you're talking a completely different language, like you're from another planet. So I recognize that there might be a little bit of language barrier and in the translation here. But just the fact that you're willing to speak up, you did so very respectfully in your piece, but also very directly. That is a hard line to draw. And there are a lot of women with pretty high profile platforms that have tried to speak out on some of this and have gotten just immense avalanches a backlash. I really respect Abigail Schreier, for example. She and I would disagree about an awful lot of things, actually, but some of her work that she's done in talking about what's going on specifically with young girls who are being manipulated with this new gender ideology, and the impact that that's having on young girls in middle school and high school in this next generation. Truly frightening, but well worth a read. And she's someone that I think you've had some connections with, right?
Yeah, she reached out to me and just said a lot of encouraging words. Obviously, she's been through a lot of this, just with the hate that comes with being brave enough to tell the truth and being bold enough to tell the truth. So she just reached out and told me that there's lots of people behind me, which is very encouraging to hear.
Does it feel like that? Do you feel like you're getting the support that you need?
Yeah, I think it definitely feels like there are a lot of people lifting me up for other people to see, but at the end of the day, I'm still the one being seen. I'm still the one that has my name on the article. So there are definitely people behind me, but I'm kind of the one standing out in front alone. So.
Right. Well, you are not alone.
Yeah.
So in those moments when it feels like you are, just remember, okay, the reality is, the truth is, what I know to be true is that you're not alone from an earthly perspective. You got friends, but also when it's you and God on a team and you know you're standing for the truth, then that's more than enough, right? We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Faith Works Live. More with Todd and Ainsley Erzen on the other side.
At FaithWorks Live, we're proud to partner with InnerVisions Healthcare. In unplanned pregnancy and STD situations, they offer help and hope. It's all confidential and it's all free. If women are in a crisis pregnancy situation, they know that they can get real help at InnerVisions. Free pregnancy testing, free STD testing, free ultrasounds as well to see that inner vision. Because women deserve the truth about their bodies, about their baby, about all of their options. And if a woman has gone down the road of seeking abortion through medication and she regrets that decision, InnerVisions also offers abortion pill reversal procedure, which is a life-saving, miraculous option to have right here in our own community. InnerVisions Healthcare, well worth supporting, providing those free services to women in crisis pregnancy. You can call them 24 hours a day at 515-440-2273. That's 515-440-2273. When you love people, you cook them tasty food. And there is no tastier food for my money and for my family than OHNEMUSBEEF. And they are so good at what they do. It's naturally raised beef. And in fact, there's several opportunities. You've had to be on a wait list because of how good and how popular their products are. Well, now there's new opportunity right now. Act now to get your OHNEMUSBEEF. There's no steroids or antibiotics. It is all natural, farm-raised butcher beef. And you can pay processing at the locker fees. They help walk you through all of the process. It's a little bit different than going to the grocery store, but it is well worth it. You get great value for your money, and they help walk first-time customers through the whole process. Now is the perfect time to provide great quality food for your family, and it just doesn't get better than OHNEMUSBEEF. So go to their website and start looking at your order today, whether it's half a cow or freezer full, whatever you need to fit your family, they'll help you out. It's OHNEMUSBEEF.com. That's OHNEMUSBEEF.com.
Faith Works Live is the name of the show. Very glad that you're with us because you get to hear the story and the powerful voice of Ainsley Erzen, who is a wonderful, I would say, high school athlete, but she's transitioning into college in the fall, and very excited, just, even just in the interests of, Iowa pride, to be able to see all the great things that you do. You have worked tirelessly for years and years and years, and you've really shown in your sport. And now you're showing great courage to be able to say women's sports should be for women, and for girls athletics to say this is our space, and the men have their side. The guys deserve their right to compete fairly, and girls are being essentially cast out, and they're being kept out of their rightful opportunities because of politics, because of this redefinition of reality that we're supposed to understand and accept and comply and go along with. But it's just not true. And it's hurting young girls as a result. It's depriving them of the opportunities that they have earned, especially in the field of athletics. So great article over at the Des Moines Register and by Ainsley Erzen. So you'll find it in the show notes for today's podcast and video. Also just search Ainsley Erzen because you'll be able to see not just that article, but also your really cool athletic accomplishments and all of your records that you've broken. And so keep an eye on this one. Todd Erzen is also in studio. He's the proud dad of Ainsley, and also 3 other lovely daughters who are coming up, and are also interested in sports and worthy of those opportunities as well. And I don't know, as a parent, Todd, as I think about what we've done and the roles that we've abdicated in general, that has led to this this situation where high schoolers now are forced to stand up for themselves and say, hey, remember us? The sport was supposed to be for us. What's going on here? These opportunities are supposed to be for us. You pointed out earlier that the reason this happened is because we don't have dads and moms who are willing to stand up and say, this is ridiculous, and to speak up even for their own kids. So that's what I'd like to do. I guess get a little bit of fire going on. I've seen that in school board meetings across the country on, other kinds of related issues. But a lot of it has to do with gender. It has to do with, even just being able to parent our own children. This is seen now as controversial and even, in some parts of the Biden administration, terroristic. Why can't we speak up a little stronger on this? Where are the parents, Todd?
Well, we've become so addicted to comfort. This is very much a first world problem. We just like the fake niceness that it isn't a gospel virtue in any way, shape, or form. To just get run over by all the lies. That's utter nonsense. But we do it just. Don't rock the boat. That's the definition of good citizen. Meanwhile, people with a clear agenda plan on taking everything from you. At some point,
they are under no such illusions of niceness, right?
You need to realize what's going on. You remember the movie, the Grisham novel, A Time to Kill, where Matthew McConaughey got one of his starts? But at the end, he gives his final presentation to the jury and says in stark detail what happened to that poor girl. But the concern is no matter what, just because of the racial politics there, people have been so locked into what they feel comfortable saying, thinking, and doing that the verdict is going to go one way that has nothing to do with reality, justice, or anything. And at the end, he had everybody close their eyes the whole time in it. But the last thing he says, now imagine that she was white. Because it was a little black girl who was hurt. And the verdict then went away because it blew up everything. The same thing is going on in this case. We're all sitting around watching chaos happen before our eyes, but we're so addicted to fake niceness, overwhelming comfort that we all have. What are we willing to do to pay back, though, for the blessings we've been given? Ultimately, that's God's call. Too much is given, much is required.
Right.
That's in superhero movies as well. But one of my favorite lines in Scripture is Isaiah 1. Where would you yet be struck? What else is it going to take? What will be taken from you? We don't need you to be a gladiator. We need you to just say, there's this thing called reality. Sometimes 1 + 1 = 2. 1 + 1 never equals giraffe.
How do you know? Have you taken Common Core math?
Have they gotten to you too, Rebecca? Say it isn't so.
No, I'm just saying. Just say it. Just imagine with me, if you will. If 1 + 1 did equal giraffe, that's basically the realm in which we're living now, where you say something as simple as, no, there's always going to be a difference between men and women. And it's particularly in the realm of athletics and competition, you would think this would be so glaringly obvious.
Right.
Because, those standards exist for a reason. But I guess not so much anymore if that has to fall and be sacrificed on the altar of this new redefinition of everything, the great redefining, then so be it. I guess some people are willing to pay that price. I am not. I am not willing to give on that ground. I don't think that we can. And
it's not a matter of being willing. We're not allowed to. We're just not allowed to.
We're followers of Christ. This is a non-negotiable because it's not our standard in the first place.
Exactly.
And it's simply just the reality. And this is where, just to get real for a minute, I'm disappointed. Not that I haven't been this entire time, but just to get deep. There's a lot of blame to go around on our side, if you will, the people that claimed that they loved God and the Constitution. But at the same time, we're willing to be swayed and be squishy on this whole gender fluidity redefinition. What harm does it do? Why can't we just use their pronouns or anything like that? If you've given ground on this, like you said, Todd, this is something that is so fundamental that now we try to go back and we hastily color in the lines that have all been removed, and it's not working. It doesn't make sense anymore. It doesn't make sense to champion Caitlyn Jenner as a quote-unquote conservative, for example. Just can't believe that happened. But then say, yeah, but I stand for biblical values. We cannot hold double standards. We'll be unstable in everything, and the rug is being steadily pulled out from under us. So I guess just in these final few moments to give parents, grandparents, just people who care about kids, about the direction of the country, and about their minds and their souls that are being swayed and influenced by a whole lot of lies to the point where we're so confused about basics that it might just threaten, like the future of the human race. That's all. What do we do to start standing up? If this is something where we haven't found our voice before and we think, yeah, this is time. It's long past, perhaps, but today is the day that we have. So how can we start taking stands, specifically for Christians, right? How can we start taking stands in a loving way, but in a way that cannot compromise on a standard that isn't ours to throw about?
Well, being loving, and you and Ainsley touched on that already, has nothing to do with embracing lies. Either we accept that or we don't. I think we need to start off right now in our pulpits. After everything that we've seen with COVID, you talk about our side, be not afraid. Is there a more fundamental tenet of our faith than that? Our side, the church, has been very, very afraid these last too many years. This was an opportunity to clean up a lot of our messes and to be the one that was the light in the darkness. The church often chose to be opposite. So this goes way beyond gender. Honestly, it's nothing we say to the secular world matters if we don't live it. We have a lot of shiny words right now, but we have a very unlived faith in many, many ways. We need that level of revival or the game is over.
Well, and I think it can be just something as simple as being willing to speak out and taking that first step. And I know and admire Isaiah, and the Lord said, "Who will speak for me? Who will speak for us to the people?" And Isaiah said, it's almost like he's like, "Oh, me, pick me." And it can be hard to be that eager to jump into a culture that is probably going to hate you and stone you, literally or figuratively. But that's what God calls for his people to do. And he places people for just such a time as this. And there's kind of a slogan, but I believe it's true. He doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. So Ainsley Erzen, right here in this moment, you're standing up and saying things that other people won't say because you know that they're true. And your faith helps to strengthen you in that. I know that. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy, for sure. But just to allow me to commend you for being willing to take that step. So, and maybe we can end by thinking about how we can move forward in faith, just in general. What are some of your encouragements to your sisters, to your teammates, to people that want to pursue their dreams, like you said, to girls who deserve those opportunities, but are, maybe they're facing some pretty scary choices of their own and they feel afraid. What can they do in the face of that fear to be able to stand up when it counts?
Well, like I said before, all of the people that have reached out to me, especially young women, have been saying things like, "You are so brave, you're so strong, you spoke so much truth, you spoke so much wisdom," and I don't feel like any of those things. And those girls are saying they don't think they can do that. I don't think I can do it either, but the good thing is I don't have to. I mean, God tells us to put on his armor, not our own armor, and I think there's so much peace in knowing that if you're brave enough to step out, he will cover you. If he is for us, who can be against us? So I think there's so much peace in knowing that, and if more girls can just dig into God's word. I mean, a lot of the girls who believe what I believe are Christian women, so just knowing that that he'll cover you if you're just bold enough to speak the truth.
Well, I am excited that the voice of courage can be heard, and we can amplify it just a little bit here on our airwaves. It's just a joy to have you on, and I wholeheartly commend. You're well written, by the way.
Thank
so
you.
I don't know if you're intending to pursue journalism, communications, anything like that. I'm just saying, it's an option. It's an option. We need actual
Bite your
journalists.
tongue.
We need actual journalists, Todd. We need the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Todd Erzen, thanks so much for joining us. Thank you for bringing your awesome daughter Ainsley. If there's anything that we can ever do to help encourage that, we are here for you. You are not alone, girl.
Thank you.
We appreciate you, Todd, as well. Thank you for saying all the things that nobody else will say.
Always fun being with you, Rebekah.
Well, I've had such a great time. If you've enjoyed this conversation, you want to pass it on, check out the podcast. We're under FaithWorks Live on Facebook, or just search for my name too, Rebekah Haynie. And we're out like in all the usual places you can find this podcast. Also our video cast. So if you want to leave your comments, critiques, commendations, we've heard them all. No, that's not true. We accept all of your feedback. We love to hear from you. So let us know what you think. And until next time, we have a mission. So let's be about it.